Hi friends, so today we are in the fourth module of risk conscious operations management of complex engineering systems, and in this module we'll be discussing a very important aspect, that is a risk conscious culture. And of course the first lecture will be introducing this topic. Before we start this lecture, let us try to understand the importance of culture. You saw that in any plant, especially in complex engineering systems, there are enough provisions to keep the plant safe, reliable, okay, because we talked about defense in depth, we talked about redundancy, diversity, and data, everything. But then there was one feeling, in spite of having all these provisions, there were some reports from accident scenarios. The scenario revealed that there is something lacking on safety culture. Now, this was a finding at IAEA level, and then everyone thought at national level, international level, plant level, there should be a platform which reflects on our habits, our motivation, our beliefs, and so many other factors which defines us in terms of either as an individual or as a group. And if I use the word culture, I think many of you will know it talks about the tradition, that is historical practices, and then it talks about how you behave, what kind of language, type of language, kind of language we use, and the kind of consideration we have to our people around, our society around, and probably then it was felt that there is a gap in what engineering provisions we provide, and what is there a connecting transfer function which can be called as safety culture or risk conscious culture. Now, I'll come to the difference between safety culture, which is the prevailing norms as on today at national and international level, and why we are talking about risk conscious culture. So with this background, probably you would have understood what is that common denominator, that is culture and risk conscious culture, that we will be discussing in this module or this week, that is fourth week. I am Professor Prabhakar V. Vardhe. If you can see my background, okay, I am basically working in the area of reliability and safety, and I have almost like 35 years of experience in background in operations and maintenance of complex engineering system, and of course safety of complex engineering systems. So now, as I introduce you, there are two terms which are very important, and the one is risk and other is conscious. So conscious word has come from consciousness, okay, and maybe by this time you would have known that in risk-based engineering, which is basically a framework we use for risk conscious operation management, the consciousness has been considered as fundamental to human existence. In fact, if we go further at a higher level, everything emanates from the consciousness only. But then let us have our own paradigm, consciousness. And why consciousness? Because human factor has been one of the very important factor to ensure safety. The historical observations and all that we'll discuss. So and then second is risk. So we are all lucky that a new paradigm called probabilistic risk assessment has come, and that in an integrated manner works with the deterministic, that is a traditional culture, and that gives us a platform for risk-based engineering, and risk-based engineering forms and the procedures, elements we are discussing to develop and define risk-conscious culture. Now, we know that in many even governmental disciplines and political field, many areas, healthcare and all. The oath is very important. Oath we take basically to show our dedication and the, I would say, emotion about that field that will dedicatedly work in the public interest. And then there are governing principles. So these two, in a broad sense, we will be discussing as part of risk conscious culture. Then we know that risk is a one of the term along with consciousness that is perceiving to develop a culture called risk conscious culture. So risk model will be discussing what is our risk model, and then we will be talking about the core area, that is human and organizational factor. That means through this culture we want to enhance the reliability of the plant. At the same time, we want to reduce the risk levels. In one word, if we have to say, de-risking in perpetuality. Okay, so we will discuss human factor, organizational factor. Human factors we will be discussing. We have discussed already in earlier lecture, and there is an independent topic. So probably here these two will discuss together. That is human and organizational factor, and then there are technical elements, because there is no the hard line between human and the technical or hardware element or software element. So we will discuss technical element when what builds the platform for risk conscious culture in terms of technical solution, and then final remarks will close with that. And at the right side you will see what we try to understand by risk conscious culture. Okay, risk consciousness. Consciousness is a field. At the outset, since you are attending this lecture, you should know that consciousness is a field where the research has been going on using Western approaches for over 3 or 4 decades. That has come into, because it was realized it is one of the most fundamental principle that can define the human, its behavior and all that. And then if we see the historically in traditional books and all, like Vedas and all, this subject has been perceived as a well-known phenomena. So that means there is a need to, if better understanding in terms of scientific principles or framework, there is a need to integrate these two sides, that is Western side or the modern science and the traditional science, to get the best benefit from in understanding the consciousness. Okay. So now let us see the introduction for this lecture. I am introducing the topic. So here when we talk about the risk conscious culture, we have discussed the background and sort of introduced this topic. But then let us discuss one very important element, residual risk. When I am talking about the risk here, actually we are talking about the residual risk. The residual component is silent here, because when the plants are designed, operated and all the provisions are there to assess and manage the risk and to keep it to the lowest possible level, and of course less than the acceptable limits, so that we don't have any consequences or undesired consequences from the operating plant. Now risk perception itself, like we are talking about the quantified principle, but then perceiving risk at the subjective level or at the quantitative level or at the qualitative level, there are some gap areas. So probably in this risk conscious culture, we are not promising, try to reduce that gap area. Like suppose if I say risk from a plant is 1.8 into 10⁻⁶ per year. Now a person on the road or in society, people may not appreciate this kind of statement, because but suppose if I say that from a risk conscious from a plant, let us say industrial plant, the risk is 1 into 10⁻⁴ per year, and the accidental risk from the elevator or from railway is something like 0.1 to 0.01. Now people will appreciate, they have some reference which they have been using left and right. I mean, here the idea is not to give the estimate of these domains, but then to what public know and what public don't know, number one. Number two, many times we talk in subjective languages, but then there is quantified meaning is required to make it a scientific language. That's what we do in risk-based engineering. Okay, so risk perception and how we perceive risk is very important. Then culture, of course, we have discussed culture. Family culture, then even the community culture, then city culture. You will find and you will notice by yourself that one city has got this culture, other city has got this culture. So that is what we are trying to discuss. We are trying to clear the gap between technical and what is required, expected for better or risk reduction or performance improvement. And then safety culture. I have given you this background. This is in place. International Atomic Energy has been publishing documents. Plants have been following this. But then safety at the end of the day is a qualitative term. Like I just explained about the risk, that term. So safety and risk. So why not use the term which is quantified, so that it will give us a scientific, technical, rational based background for our jobs, whatever we do or try to understand. And then risk conscious culture. Of course, we have started with and we will keep discussing it. So this is what we have here. Now, the first item that we would like to understand is residual risk. Here you can see that we have got this domain, yellow domain mark over here to here and all. That means deterministically and probabilistically we have designed a system in such a manner that this risk, which is huge area, we have covered. So and we actually our intention was to even address a small area, but then whatever we do, because everything cannot be pursued at the outset at time t is equal to 0. So with the best interest we have done this and we have got this. And now here we can see the residual element of the risk, which is very small, but which requires attention. Why it requires attention? Because accident should not happen. There are certain domains where if one accident happen, it has got economic, it has got health effect, it has got fatalities, it has got consequences, financial consequences. In fact, it has got connected with the reputation of the domain itself. So the consequences are very heavy. So accident can be avoided. And this just one statement I'll keep giving you always, so that you are knowing what we are talking about. Risk means likelihood of an event and consequences. If there are no consequences, then that event it might affect the reliability of the system. But then from the undesired consequences, it is. But then again in this lecture only we will understand that even those events which appears to be having no consequences have consequences. Only thing is the boundary or system definition or the constraint we have to see, and that will be discussing in detail. That is what this culture is making us to go deeper in deeper aspects and try to understand and how to reduce the risk component which safety culture has identified. So here if I see the area and if I want to see in quantified term what it will mean, it is meaning in terms of, let's say I take the case of nuclear power plant, it is saying the residual risk is 1 into 10 to the minus 5 to 1 into 10 to the minus 6. Okay, so this should be 10 to the power 5 to 10 to the power 6. Okay, so this is what it should be like this. So this is a very small area, but then we have to address it because we can't afford accident even in 30 years, 40 years, and our objective, at least our goal will be that there should not be any accident in this coming 100 years. So these are the goals that we have in front of us. So now you understood what is the residual risk, and now let us say culture. We will have another 1 or 2 minutes. So if we take the generic definitions, okay, I try to chip in what we understand from there actually. So the generic definition is the way of life group of people, meaning the way they do the things. It is more oriented towards a societal system. Okay, but then we got going with this definition, and then if we want to go into specificity, what is memory to an individual is a culture to an organization. Now you see this statement, it has put us in difficulty in the sense, memory is a thing which we have to understand, but we know that we have a memory. But then at biological level, at consciousness level, how the memory is developed, what affects it, I mean there are questions. So, but yeah, it says that one thing comes out very clearly, what is historically happening, we get used to it and we start respecting it and we follow it. Okay, to that extent, it has brought the clarity and being more specific. Now, I am developing a system here. So, what culture means for me? So, here I will talk about the technical staff and administration and all that. So, I am using this term, how human and organization start their day. I mean, whenever we talk about anything, we say what is our culture, you know. So, how we start our day, their language. Language is a very important part of our culture. Expression, how we express our ideas and what is that language we use to express our ideas. Interaction, documentation, line of authority, way of paying respect among colleagues and to superiors and of course to subordinates. Management's approach and attitude to level of openness or independent thinking, questioning. In fact, you must note this word, questioning. Many accidents, this has been found to be a root cause because that culture did not have a culture of questioning. If my senior has told me something, I will just go and do it. But then in the field, things might be different than what configuration we got from our counterpart. So, questioning is one of the best culture. Of course, 99% of the time we should follow the procedure, but then you should be having an open mind. Because finally you are the master, you are going to, you are facing the situation yourself. And then frequency, priority, all those things, and mode of discussions, provision in the organization to ensure that the staff has, they are kept, staff is kept in good humor. This cannot be underestimated. You know, it's very important thing. Only happy people can do great things. You know, so this is what. So now, in fact, in this definition, you will find the collection of root causes of many failures or human failures that would have happened in the past, and that's how we are giving a bucket of RC root causes that affect our performance, human performance or even organizational performance. Why risk conscious culture in the ORCOM? Why we should have this culture? Of course, one of the motivation is we had at the back end safety culture. So, safety culture, can something be done which is quantified, rational based and all. So this idea came, that risk conscious culture. And then the first thing is safety is an overriding factor. So, why if you have to bring in concentrated way the motivation, attention, focus component to safety, then the best route is start analyzing risk. I am not asserting here that safety is 1 minus risk. Okay, that is a big discussion actually, and it is a mathematical discussion. But then we can say, if we reduce the risk, I am making the system more safe. Okay, so safety is an overriding factor, so risk becomes the most important factor. So, and since risk is a has got mathematical connotation, of course, it will provide us a rational based approach for risk conscious culture. Now, the matrix. Since it is mathematical, we can easily develop a matrix for at the plant level, at the system level and at the component level. What should be the acceptance, reliability parameters, conditions, okay, and provisions in the plant. Now, the success of this risk component can be seen that the paradigm, risk informed approach is almost being now sort of universally accepted for taking many decisions in general, but especially regulatory decisions in particular. So, here we are sort of trying to understand why the risk conscious culture is required and why we can think about moving from safety culture to risk conscious culture. Okay, so now here we are trying to say is risk conscious culture is a transfer function between what we have designed and what we expect at management level and at human level. Okay, so at least for the purpose of risk based engineering, we are saying consciousness is fundamental to the human existence, and I think we generally agree on this point. And if that is so, then it along with the cognition, it defines our behavior. So it's not alone like you see the human factor paradigm that is there. Cognition has been given systematic importance, but consciousness per se has not sort of, at least I didn't see any. So consciousness, let us say, if I have a circuit, if the voltage is low, my circuit, how well it is designed and everything, what is its capability, but then when the voltage is low or current is low, it may not perform. So this is the simplest way to understand the role of consciousness. If a person is having right consciousness, he can listen, he can answer, he can what consciousness reflects immediately is attention, focus, okay, and there are many other factors. So now this is one thing. Then we see that all our knowledge and all our risk, the field, here randomness is the ruling. And randomness is ruling, so we have uncertainty. So that means an element of uncertainty has come into picture. In fact, this was one of the reasons why even safety culture or risk conscious culture has come into existence. And now if you have to define human factor, human is much more unpredictable. It is a most complex system, existing, and they are monitoring the behavior or expecting a behavior. Of course, training and other modules in perpetuity or learning experience, they definitely bring in a focused way to ensure safety, reliability and all that. But then randomness cannot be ruled out whether it is a deterministic component or a probabilistic component. It is, and that's why probabilistic risk assessment brings out risk based engineering. It brings out the role of uncertainty in the forefront actually, because very important. If I have some point estimate and uncertainties bends are very high, it is not acceptable. But the same statement and very narrow uncertainty band, yes, we will believe it, a factor of 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, it is good. And earlier we were managing this by having very high factor of safety. So that has got its own plus and minus, but then knowledge makes us wiser for doing the things in a better way. The objective also is to support de-risking as part of ARCU. So its objective function is de-risking on perpetuity, especially in the gray areas, to reduce the risk. That is the objective. Now, safety culture. Before we go to risk conscious culture, let us see what is safety culture that we are talking about. Okay, so nuclear industry can claim, based on its performance, 3 major accidents and I think terrestrial power 4 or more accumulated operating experience, where 430 or more nuclear plants operating worldwide, and 3 accidents, in which only in 2 accidents we had off-site consequences. But in the first accident, that is Chernobyl and Fukushima, we had off-site consequences. But TMI in USA, there was no, so only we can only say 2 accidents actually. So once the nuclear industry has demonstrated safety record, then everyone has to learn from there actually. So they have safety culture actually, and IAE is propagating it, popularizing this, and it is very encouraging that. It's a different thing that we have want to go further ahead with the quantification and the facilities that is available, and the kind of benefit that can be accrued and all. So it is IAEA statement is there, observes that in some circumstances when severe accidents happen, analysis indicate that safety margins had been eroding steadily for years. It's a very powerful statement. This can result from people gradually accepting declined condition in safe workplace practices and ignoring the brought on by this decline that may have unnoticeable drifted towards prioritizing other concerns over safety. What we are meaning is, okay, in black and white or in hard provisions, soft provisions, we have provided safety, but then a lot depends on how we perceive them, how we tend to ignore them for, let's say, if to cater to other benefits and all that. So then risk might have been played down. There clearly it is, because nothing has happened which can eventually lead to the severe risk. If I do something and I have this idea, nothing will happen, but that is not correct. Nothing will happen till it happens. So it is better to follow the best practices, and that is what is derived through the safety culture. So how IAE defines the safety culture? The assembly of characteristic and attitude in organizational and individual, which establishes that an overriding priority, protection, safety and safety issues receive the highest attention warranted by the significance. So no compromise, in one word if I have to say, no compromise on safety. Okay, it is not non-negotiable. Sort of this, from this slide we should get this. Here IAE is committed to spread the principle of safety and culture all through the guideline, and I think there are a huge benefit which are coming forward, but there is always, like any other field, a lot has to be done on that. And now let us come back to our risk conscious culture. And now here we see that definition, if you do so. For this purpose, that is risk conscious culture, I have defined this RCC, or I will be using the word abbreviation RCC, risk conscious culture, a scientifically evolved and conscious operational ecosystem oriented and valued for uncompromising attitude towards ensuring highest priority to de-risking in perpetuity while meeting the plant deliverables. Even if there is a compromise on plant deliverables, we can afford it, but there is no compromise on de-risking. De-risking it should happen perpetuity. Probably this is what best I could see to define the risk conscious culture, and risk-based engineering provides the fundamental for this culture. As far as the risk component is there, risk-based engineering, I'll call in here till I go to the fourth lecture and fifth lecture. We have given a twist to risk-based engineering. We call enhanced risk-based engineering, because many new ideas and all came which can improve the culture, and risk-based engineering same framework can be extended to risk-conscious culture, RCC. So, and of course, major focus have been, even though operational practices, methods, methodology, various paradigms, but human and organizational factor. In fact, the organizational factor, this also is a relatively new concept. Earlier it was human factor, that is man-machine interface, but later on it was realized that many limitation, faults or failures, they got percolated down to the control room scenario or plant scenario, because there were procedural issues, there were cultural issues, and some decisions were taken at the highest level to go ahead, and that's how we ended up into the accidents. So even though this lecture focuses on safety risk, and then now we have a new challenge, that is security risk. So safety risk and security risk, but then the advantage is this same paradigm can be extended to security risk also, and that's how we can get a total risk safety, that is safety risk by addressing safety risk and security risk. So with this, the overview is, we understood, we defined safety culture, we defined risk conscious culture definition we got, and we tried to understand what is culture. The culture is a huge topic, but then whatever is required for orientation of the learners here. That much I think we have done justice to it. What is the role of risk-based engineering over here? Because this risk-conscious operation management is a spin-off of risk-based engineering. So, of course, definitely that way it has provided the fundamentals and historical perspective on accidents and relevance of safety. In fact, in one slide we discussed that these are all box of root causes. So that is how it is, and then definition of risk culture. And now next lecture will be on development of risk conscious culture actually. Thank you. Our central pillar of risk conscious culture.